It's time to talk LSU baseball with Mike Scarborough and Kendall Rogers of D1Baseball. This is Batter Up.
All right, another edition of Batter Up. Mike Scarborough here with Kendall Rogers of D1Baseball. And Kendall, I have a little running Microsoft Word document with the questions for you each week, and we're on episode 10 already. And I don't know from your vantage point if you think this baseball season has gone by fast, but it certainly has here, although I'm guessing with the success or lack of that LSU has had, there's a lot of fans around here that think this season has been painful and slow. But
yeah, it has gone by fast. I was just talking to somebody last night about how we're less than 2 months away from Omaha. That's hard to believe, to be honest with you. But it has gone by fast, and since you were looking in some old notes, the last time that you and I talked, that LSU after LSU had won a series was the second weekend of March.
That's
crazy.
The
Xavier series.
Well, you look at what they looked like in Houston, and you were there. And then the first series against Florida, and then from then on, it's been downhill ever since.
Yeah, you could really and truly, Mike. I mean, you could kind of point to game 3 and really more than anything, game 2 against Florida is kind of the turning point for the season thus far. I mean, you think back to the Florida game, that middle game. It looks like they're going to get a series win over the Gators at home. They can't finish the job on Saturday. And, like, the complexion of the season has just been totally different since that point. I mean, although they did play – I thought they actually played pretty decent against Arkansas on the road. But other than that is the game, that middle game against Florida, where I just feel like the wheels came off a little bit. The bad news is they're in a rough spot. They're at 3-12 in the conference. The good news is there's a long way to go. And there are teams in the past who have gone on the run at the end, and all of a sudden they get in the postseason and they get red hot. Like if this team could just get in the postseason, I think the pieces are there to go on a run. But they got to get the first. That's going to be tough.
Well, and that's what Jay said yesterday, and he talked to us for about 30 minutes. And I know some of the baseball fans in the comments section were kind of, teasing a little bit and getting after him for some of the things that he said. The title of my takeaway and what we used as the title of his press conference was we are not that far away, but we're far away. And then he went in to explain himself. But he also said that he felt that when you look at who they played, they're playing the absolute best teams in all of college baseball, and they've had them every weekend. And he feels that if they were to get into regional play and head somewhere, that they could really do some damage. That it's just the schedule has just been brutal and hasn't given them an opportunity to show that there can be halfway decent.
Well, I will say this. I did talk to Jay the other day, and I made the comment to him that, had only the whoever schedules Georgia's schedule in football the year after they win the national championship, whoever does that definitely did not put together LSU's schedule this year. Because I feel like every time Georgia wins a football championship, like their schedule is easier the next year. LSU's, it's like, oh, let's make their schedule as hard as humanly possible to start the season.
Exactly. And then when you looked at LSU's schedule, you said, well, here's some easier weeks, or when things started struggling, well, this is where you'll get some wins. All of a sudden, those teams start playing better than they had been.
Look at Missouri.
That's Missouri this weekend.
I mean, they had not played well at all until the Florida weekend. All of a sudden, since that point, I mean, even last weekend against Georgia, they didn't play awful. They just lost the series. And suddenly they're playing much better. So, yeah, I mean, the bad news is they started off with a tough schedule. The good news is they're not alone. I mean, we think about teams that are on the bubble right now. Obviously, LSU on the bad side of the bubble, Florida on the bubble. They were barely in this week. I mean, Mike, look at Florida's remaining schedule. At Vandy, at Arkansas, Tennessee, Kentucky, at Georgia. So they're not alone.
Question for you, and this comes from our sponsor, attorney Kenneth P. Haines. He says, to what does Kendall attribute the lack of success with LSU pitching this year?
Yeah, I mean, it all goes back to this, and I don't I hesitate to say this because I am absolutely – this is a team game. I don't want to throw everything on one guy. But I think coming in this season, I think when you looked at LSU as a club, I think had you told me that Thatcher Hurd, and I'm just going to throw Thatcher Hurd out there. If you told me Thatcher Hurd had a good year, I think LSU has a good year. I think after the way that he finished last season, I think if Thatcher Hurd is throwing right now the way that he did in the last year in Omaha, the complexion of the season is totally different because you're probably not losing in a close game on you're not losing the Vandy series. 'Cause, I mean, if you remember, they won the opener, they lost the second game 8-6. They probably won the Florida series. They probably won the Mississippi State series. So what I'm saying is that a guy like that, had he been clicking on all cylinders, I mean, it changes the whole dynamic of this entire team. So I look at that like just him not panning out this year is like the number one reason why they're struggling. Because I mean, I think you have the ability to close some teams out. And outside of that, I mean, Gage Jump. You never know. I hate to throw this on pitching coaches because you just never know how somebody's going to come back from injury. He hasn't been bad, but I mean, he hasn't been just flat out dominant.
Well, and that what you just led me to it because it's something that another friend of mine brought the other day to ask you. Sure. Is what we're seeing at Texas A&M after Yeski's gone and the way they're pitching over there right now. Is that because of the foundation that was laid by Yeski? What do you attribute that to? And is it that maybe it takes time under Yeski to get, or is it just absolutely 100% personnel? And it's not that the factors at both places that's not it.
Yeah, it's a valid question, a very valid question. I would say it's a mixture of both. I think part of it is the foundation over there. If you think back to last year with A&M, Ryan Prager, who has 73 strikeouts, 5 walks this year for them. Their Friday guy, he's been awesome. Well, guess what? They didn't have him last year. He was hurt. He was out for the year, rehabbing an injury. So, I mean, just a little thing like that. I mean, just like we were talking about Thatcher, just a little thing like that could have changed the whole dynamic of their pitching staff last year. So, I hate to just throw it all on the pitching coach, but I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, when you look at the job that their new pitching coach has done, Max Wiener, that came from the Mariners organization. He's done a really good job. Like, their command is off the charts good. Obviously, 2 years ago, their command was awful. And some people would obviously look at LSU this year and go, "Hey, our command isn't great right now either." So I would say on Yeski, here's the thing: the resume speaks for itself. But I do think as you look ahead to next year, there needs to be a gradual improvement. Like, it's like, hey, year one, guys like Thatcher Hurd haven't panned out. So let's see what happens next year.
Was it you? I think it was. Where said that at the end of the year that Yeski might be up for some head coaching jobs.
I mean, he could be. I mean, the thing for him is like, where would you go from LSU? Like, you're gonna have to get a big time job to leave LSU, and like, how many big time jobs are going to be open this offseason? That's a big question for me.
I tend to think Jay's the competitor, absolutely. But do you think he gets to the point where it's like this season it is what it is, unless they go on some magical run, and we've got fans on our message board doing the math and what if and all that. And I made the joke yesterday. Do you need because we've had a rally possum? Do you need a rally raccoon to run out on the field to start this? And he laughed and said, if that'll work, I'll go round some up. But
hey, you know what? You're in Louisiana. I want a rally nutria is what I want.
Yeah, there you go.
I know there's some over there on the banks of the Mississippi. Man.
And there's a coulee out there between there and the indoor football facility that it might have a nutria in there. But I think now I forgot where I was going with it. Darn.
Just about the end of the season.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Mathematically, could they get there and be in postseason play, et cetera? Or do you think he's also at the point where he's ready to get beyond this season and get to work to get in that portal and get things right for the future of the program?
I would say 85% now and 15% next year. I mean, obviously, I think Jay would probably never say this, and I think your dog would agree with me on the background. This doesn't look like a team that's going to win a national championship, right? I mean, let's be honest. Like, if they got to the postseason and won the whole thing, I'd be the most shocked person on earth. So, with that said, given that's the standard, I have no doubt in my mind that he is putting together NIL funds, putting together a strategy going in the offseason to get ready for next year. But I think for the most part, he's still, focus on this year. So let's look at the remaining schedule. Okay.
I'll tell you what.
We did this exercise last week. They're at 3-12 right now. So let's say they take the Missouri series. They're at 5-13. Auburn, let's say they win that. They're at 7-14. A&M, I think they'll actually play well against A&M, but let's just say they get a series loss there. That would be what, 8-14? No, 8-15. And I'll tell you what, I will throw you the Alabama series. I'll give you 10-16, and I'll give you a series win against Ole Miss. So that's 12. That's 12-17 going into Hoover. That's with a series win over Alabama. So what they really need to do at this point, Mike, is either win the A&M series or win the Alabama series and take care of business the rest of the way.
Yeah, that sounds.
It sounds like a lot, but I think they'll win the Missouri series, and I think I like their chance against Ole Miss and Auburn at home. I think Ole Miss and Auburn have very similar issues to LSU where they're just not very consistent. So I tend to just go with the home team on that. So, again, I think it all boils down to can they upset A&M or Alabama that gives them a pathway going into Hoover, which is all you can ask for at this point.
Well, you brought up Parker barking in the background. We got a little Pom at the window that all she does all day is bark at dogs being walked, and he's at the door to this room. And so when she starts barking, he feels like he's got to back her up. And so last week we were doing football practice reports, and we had a weed eater and a blower behind those reports. So it's always something we're doing here at Tiger Bay.
Man, I got 2 dogs that just bark nonstop. So join the club.
Yeah. All right. Let's hear from Kenny P. Haines, and of course he sponsors these Batter Up reports each and every week.
Kenny Haines is a proud 1989 graduate of LSU Law School with a passion for justice. Kenny stands out as the only lawyer in the state, board certified in both appellate practice and family law. Drawing from 34 years of trial experience, Kenny has navigated the most complex aspects of real people's lives. If you need help in Northwest Louisiana with a family issue, legal issue, or a highly skilled trial attorney, call Kenny 318-222-2100. And speaking of winning, Kenny would like to recognize our 2023 national champions and congratulate coaches Kim Mulkey and Jay Johnson. Go Tigers!
All right. Thank you, Kenny, for that. The official attorney at Tiger Bay. Kendall, LSU Missouri, what to expect. And look, they seem to be pretty excited about the future with their new coaching staff and Jace. Look, I know there's coach speak, but I believe him when he's impressed with what he's seen so far of what is being built up there in Missouri in a hurry.
Yeah, man, I'm really impressed with the job that Kerry Jackson's done as of late. This is a team that had really scuffled. When you're scuffling that much, you're thinking like, man, how long are they going to be bought in? They stayed bought in, and it's starting to pay off for them a little bit. If you look at their numbers, in conference play, over the last couple of weekends, especially, against Florida, 2 weekends ago, Jetty or Hernandez, had a couple of huge hits for them. His average is up to 288. The thing about Missouri is you can't really look at their numbers because the last 2 weekends they're playing like way different than they were the first few weeks of the season. But I will say this about them. They're not a club that's really going to hurt you with the long ball. That's just not who they are. But, they can pitch a little. Javin Pimentel has had a really nice conference showing for them. 22 strikeouts, 190 opponent batting average. Logan Lunsford has done a really nice job for them, 216 opponent batting average. So they've got some pretty decent pieces on the mound. But again, if LSU's offense comes to play this weekend and they pitch at all, like if they can just get average pitching, they should win this series because Missouri is just not a very offensive club unless you give them extra chances. If you give them extra chances, they can beat you, and that's what Florida did. So the big key for me is just, if LSU plays defense this weekend, they'll be fine.
Well, yeah, I think you're probably right. I think they know that they've got to win 2 out of 3. He says that he hasn't
if they
done all
lose the
year.
series this weekend, they lose the series this weekend. For all intents and purposes, you might as well just start getting ready for next year. I mean, at that point, you're 4-14, and you got that schedule left. Like, it probably just isn't going to happen unless you just went on a crazy run in Hoover.
Yeah, people around here are already making suggestions and trying to get an estimate on how many guys are going to be in the portal and making moves and get ready for next year. But
I'm sure Jay loves all the different opinions on that too.
Oh yeah, he rolls his eyes. I know it.
Oh yeah,
but he's a trooper, man. Because I'm in all those pressers and he'll talk. I mean, he talked yesterday for 30 minutes. He don't have to do that, and he does. And there's some questions that come his way that I know he thinks are silly. And with the things are going the way things are going, he could easily be aggravated and take somebody's head off, and he's a real pro with it. So good for him.
Well, the last time that he was mad about a way a team finished the season, the next year they won the national championship. And so, not saying that's what they're going to do next year, but the track record on that's pretty good.
Absolutely. All right, Kendall, tell them about LSU fans. You go to D1Baseball and subscribe. What code do they use? And tell them how to get there.
Yeah, 24 season. They'll get you 24% off any subscription on the site. Obviously, we'll still have a lot of LSU stuff. I mean, hey, you know what? If the season doesn't turn out the way you want it, guess what? We'll have a lot of portal scoop for you. So we'll have you covered there. But here's to the Tigers finishing the season strong and finding their way to the postseason.
Absolutely. All right, Kendall. We'll talk next week, man.
All right, Bus. Be good.
Thanks.